Hello, everybody. Hey, I'm Santosh Ilamparuthi, and this is
Jerry. Hi, Jerry.
let's see. Oh, okay. So we do have the slides up. Yeah, we are from Delft Open Hardware at TU Delft. We have a couple of pictures of some of our colleagues there. Angela, who's also part of our community, an active colleague, she's here as well. And Jose, who's on the bottom right of the other picture, he's part of the movement as well. And we are together. People who are essentially working on Delft Open Hardware at TU Delft. It's been an effort for the past few years. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things today about our story of how we are here now and what we plan to do in the future, but also the different challenges we've faced and how we've overcome. There are going to be some high points and some low points. So it's about us sharing our trials and tribulations, but also hoping to get your viewpoints as well. The presentation itself is relatively short compared to the other ones we've seen so far, with the hope that we could get some feedback from you and interaction with you for our how we are doing and also what your thoughts are on how things are. Okay, yeah. All right, where are we now? What you see here are a bunch of different projects that were partly outputs were partly funded by Delft Open Hardware through our stimulation fund. Jerry will be talking a little bit more about that. We also have thank you. We also have a QR code here which refers to our project page on TU Delft, which lists all the different projects we have supported, both directly through stimulation funds, but also through running our Open Hardware Academy, which is an open source resource on how to work on open source projects and things like that that was developed at TU Delft. You can find both of it there. Yeah, some of the ones you have are like some little electronic boat. We have some projects that were supported, testing equipment, some microscopes, and open source recyclable solar panel. So we have a wide range of projects that we have people with different levels of technical experience that people work on.
Yeah, so Santosh already introduced me, but my name is Jerry. And yeah, we're planning to tell you a few stories about how our community got started, how it grows. And one of the first stories that we want to start with is about the research hardware engineer role. This all happened in 2022. I became the research hardware engineer. And basically, back then, we didn't really have an institutional backbone. We were sort of a community student researcher group, but nothing formal. And all of this changed in 2022. So back then, there was the Open Science program of the TU Delft, a 4-year program. And they saw our community and they thought, this is a cool grassroots bottom-up initiative. We should do something about this. And they basically gave us the support that we needed to grow further. First thing we did was invent our own role. So we chose the research hardware engineer role, and we did this very deliberately because it looks and sounds like the research software engineer role. And this is very common in universities where they have people supporting researchers with the software that they produce, maintaining it, sharing this. And we wanted to frame it as something similar, but then for the hardware, and ultimately make this also as open source hardware. And this role, it really gave us a lot of freedom on how to grow this community. It gave us a possibility to try a lot of things. So, for example, we started the Open Hardware Academy for students to get them involved as early as possible. It got us possible for organizing workshops, events, meetups to really, grow the community. And I would say the key learning from this story and the research hardware engineer role is that it really helps to use the vocabulary that the managers and the organization use. So have it similar to the research software engineer, so that they can easily envision what this role entails and how it can be beneficial also for the university itself. And it also helped us a lot to support other communities. So, for example, we saw a big growth in the Utrecht University, and from Sanli's presentation earlier. And that helped a lot for others to also formalize a role around open source hardware. As a research hardware engineer, this also gave me the possibility to talk with a lot of researchers and to learn about the projects that they do. One of which was JC Deal. He is a professor from industrial design engineering, and he ran this multi-year research project to do a smart diagnostic device, the Schistoscope, a microscope to determine if there's schistosomiasis eggs in a urine samples. I won't go into much detail on the project itself, but the cool thing is that he already knew about open source hardware, and we could really support him in all of the questions that he had, chip in with some of the knowledge on how to share this online. And this made it so that he really sort of became an ambassador amongst all of these professors, and it helped others to also see that it can be beneficial to share things online. So he was very much sort of an outsider of our community, but very supportive. And yeah, that helped to bridge the gap to other researchers and to spread it along. And then the third story that I would like to tell is around patents. If I were to show you this slide, and if I were to tell you that it's part of the TU Delft patent portfolio, it would be pretty convincing. It looks like very complicated stuff. The only thing is, I would be lying, and you would know because it was already in the slide 3 pages ago. So the thing is that the TU Delft, it has a slogan, Impact for a Better Society, and they have a Impact and Innovation Center. Similar, this is a bit of an overlap with Sanli's presentation, but it has a technology transfer station, technology transfer desk. Yeah. And they make it sound very cool. It has impact, it has innovation in the name, but don't let it fool you. It's pretty traditional because you go there and you say, oh, I have a great idea. And then they say, cool, we're going to help you get a patent. And that's it, period. And yeah, we think this path is not suitable nor successful for all of the projects coming from the university. And even when we talk to the Impact and Innovation Center itself, they also explain that around 2024, they got roughly 100 applications for patents. Around 80 of them, they passed only 20 of them passed the first round of sort of research and seeing if it's viable. And only 5 of them get a long-term patent. And then you still need to see if it's useful or not. So that's a 95% fail rate and a lot of outstream. So yeah, we wondered if it's possible to also have a non-patent route and to build business cases and support all of these projects that might end up not getting a patent, and still have them get nice research outcome and live up to a little bit of this motto, an impact for a better society. So yeah, also the lesson learned from this slide is that there is a lot of potential, and we now see that we can convince more and more of these researchers to share their findings, even though in the past they might try to go for a patent application, because then they already document a lot, so it's sort of easy to share it from there. And we can hopefully grow this number of the projects coming from Delft that are shared as open hardware. And one of these possible projects is the next project, which Sanli is going to talk about.
So before we get into another successful project, Jerry talked about all the high points, so I'm going to be the bummer. I'm going to be talking about some of the low points. Um, the Delft Open Hardware project started off as a grassroots effort, and we were part of a pilot program for the Open Science program at our university. The pilot was successful. They wanted us to become a part of the main program. We became a part of the main program. We were quite successful. Jerry became a research hardware engineer. That pilot program was widely appreciated, again, quite successful. But then, as all things with the higher education funding and everything that happens, funding got cut. Our initial plans for 2024 were quite grand, quite large scale on what we wanted to do. But that wasn't possible because of funding cuts, and it completely changed the direction of what we planned to do. It eventually left myself, another colleague of mine, Jose, and Angela, but yeah, just there to, in our own time, to be able to move the community along. And we also had other full-time roles at the university, so that was not an easy task to do. But taking that adversity and seeing what we could do with that was essentially what we call the stimulation fund, which was talking to researchers and telling them that, okay, we have up to about 5,000 euros that we can give you. The only requirement there is that anything and everything you use it for has to be open source hardware. You have to publish everything associated with it. Beyond that, yeah, that's it. There are no other restrictions. So the idea being that we want to reach as large a community and as wide an output available as possible. And when we rolled it out, the idea was that maybe we would be able to get 5 or 6 different projects that we could support. But that was not the case. We actually ended up getting more people submissions wanting to get access to the fund to be able to produce more open source hardware output than we actually had money to share. So that was a real eye-opener in terms of actual demand within universities, definitely within TU Delft, but I imagine it should be similar in other universities for open hardware. And for us, it was quite, again, eye-opening, despite being in the open hardware environment, that the amount of demand and actual interest is quite high. It's not that people are not interested in doing that, it's that there is not adequate support to actually be able to achieve that. With that, we have this output. This is just one of the many outputs we had. For example, all of these outputs were supported by the Stimulation Fund. But this one is special because we actually had most of the outputs were on GitHub and our other online spaces where it's fully documented and shared. But this one was actually published on HardwareX. We have one of the journal editors here, Sanli, and it was quite successful. We also, the researcher, Arjan Knolst, he also gave a podcast interview about the project, so you can scan that one. The other QR code is for the actual project HardwareX page. And what we are looking to do going forward is to have as many projects as possible to be documented in a way like HardwareX does, or other similar publications where the full documentation, full research output is made available to everybody and also accounted as a research output within academia. Because, the publication, whether we like it or not, is still the currency of the land, and this greatly helps. Both the interview, the podcast interview, and the output was widely appreciated, was shared among colleagues, and it was seen as a really successful output. And this is also something that we're driving towards. So we are encouraging the Stimulation Fund, where we are essentially going forward to essentially have more of such output. So looking into the future, what do we do? Funds are still low. We don't know if we will have funds going into 2026. We are exploring multiple ways in which to do this. Not to just be a bummer, but to be realistic. We have a lot of enthusiasm and support for open hardware, but it is also needs to be understood that the larger society community still hasn't completely grasped the importance and the necessity to support. So yeah, our story, the hope here is that the baby doesn't like the message, say. So yeah, our hope is to actually bring about acknowledgement for that. One of the things we're doing right now, this second round of Stimulation Fund is ongoing right now. We've had a decent amount of response for that, and we're hoping to have another successful output here. We have a thematic digital competence center, which is an initiative within the Netherlands to support different digital competence activities among researchers. We have an uncompetition pitch. The idea being that the output of the projects or the competition would essentially be that people collaborate with each other and have output, and not exactly just fight for secrecy and just having a good output. And Ocean, the Open Source Hardware Netherlands initiative, we're working with Sanli. We're also looking to do more things. I think we have 5 minutes left, and we'd really love some questions. Thank you. Yes.
I love seeing this at university settings. There's been a couple other initiatives I've heard of. How much does the very senior leadership, like dean level, know about this and support this? Would they be willing to reward faculty based on open source hardware metrics versus in addition to publication metrics, et cetera, as a means of communicating that this is important, communicating it exists, and showing real support for this as a movement?
So the answer to that one is mixed. There is no one clear answer. There is officially a requirement for open source outputs, not just hardware, software, everything. And so there is an expectation that for tenure track and other promotion and just evaluation, open source outputs are there. But my day job was a data steward, so I work with researchers, PhDs and above, every day, all day. And I've had researchers tell me, yeah, okay, that's the formal requirement. I've never heard that come up in the tenure track, or I don't know, yearly, where that one gets a tick at most. So it's a mixed bag. So there are actual efforts on rewards and recognition for open science that, I mean, anybody enrolled in any open science initiative at a university would know about this. And we're also pushing open hardware within that. The line we use is open hardware is a third leg of the open science ecosystem. Without that, you're going to fall over. So that's how we are pushing it. 2 questions. Yeah.
Sorry, making you run around the room. My name's Andrew, and I work with the Internet of Production. I'm just going next week to, well, next month, whenever it is, to the United Nations OSPO gathering. The open source project offices are taking off around the world, but also in universities to some extent. And it strikes me that that's a lot of what they do is a lot of what you're doing. One of the issues that I had when I was working in the disaster relief sector with open hardware is that there were just standard clauses in contracts, even from government donors, that if you develop something, the IP belongs to the government. And we would always change every single contract to say, no, it can belong to the government, but it'll always be openly licensed. And that sometimes delayed projects for as much as a year, negotiating clauses like that. Do you have any leverage through the contracts with the donors that fund your university to have a look at those clauses?
I actually have a much nicer answer to this question. So one of the most important funders in the Netherlands is NWO, and most of their funding has an open science requirement. It is established that everything, and our university, for example, by default, all employee output is owned by the university. But if you're open sourcing, then the standard understanding is that they transfer the license to you for you to open source. So for all software and everything, the hurdle comes in because anytime there is a possibility of monetization, both the funders and others have a clause that says, oh, you can patent / whatever else you want to do, license it in proprietary manner, if you think that's there. For a lot of research output, that's not applicable. It also depends on what research output. For general output of research data, it is expected to be open, but for design and development. So that is an area that we are still working on to push. But yeah, if the researcher wants to make it open, there's nothing stopping them. I think there was another question.
I've got a big voice.
Right.
My question is, do you do any outreach into other areas of the university where there are projects that aren't outside research budget? My vested interest is tomorrow I'm on the open source rocketry panel, and I've had the pleasure of visiting the DARE rocketry team at the TU Delft campus numerous times, who do wonderful things, but they don't do it in an open source way. And I wondered whether your project can kind of outreach and influence those other kind of interesting projects out there in your brilliant campus.
Yeah, I think in general we try to, and we try to show them the advantages. Within the TU Delft campus, we have dream teams, different groups working on these different international competitions. One of them, I believe, was also the DARE team. And there, yeah, we see a lot of hesitance towards sharing the intellectual property, the knowledge that they gain. Often they're student projects for a year. And sometimes you see that after a year or after the competition is done, they're more relaxed. But until the moment that they need to participate in the competition, they're very reluctant. I think this still will take years to convince them.
So the last comment before we stop off. So two things here. So the uncompetition, that's part of the motivation, where the idea is that you win by sharing and reusing others. So that is part of the motivation. And I have spoken to the DARE team as well. Part of the problem specifically for the rocketry is export control, sensitive. They're not launching anything that's going to hit anybody else, but the immediate response is a refrain for that. The other dream teams actually should have greater possibility, but I think the ecosystem isn't ready to accept that as a mode of working. But yeah, we would love to be able to change that. Yeah. Thank you.